Welcome to the Life of Hair. My name is James Atkinson. Thank you very much for choosing to join me to this week's episode. Now, in this week's episode, we're going to see a very, very common situation. Now, this girl's explained up front exactly how she's got to this point, but it took her a few minutes to get there, so I'm going to do it really, really quickly. Basically, she had her hair coloured in the salon. She brought a picture in of a kind of multi-tonal balayage. The girl turned her hair black. I never got to see that, so I don't know how dark it really was, but she is now nearly a year on, and she's got her mum helping her bleach her hair. Now there, it says on the description, bleaching my hair, everything went wrong. It didn't go wrong. It's just as you would expect it to go if you did it in this style. It actually turns out to be okay in the end, considering everything. But we'll take you through the journey. I'll talk to you about how you could avoid these things if you're not very experienced with bleaching and you're new to hair. Some of the things you could avoid to avoid giving yourself these types of headaches. So if you enjoyed this type of content, please hit the thumbs up button, subscribe down below, because there's loads and loads of content like this on the channel, and there's new content each and every week. So I will see you next Sunday for another episode of The Life of Hair.
So here we are, bleaching it, spoiler alert, and I might cut it really short, like I'm a Chamberlain. So looking.
Okay, first things first. Not quite halfway through the application, and as you can see, the root area is incredibly light, and the ends aren't looking anywhere near the same level. So this is going to get really blonde and actually really damaged because it's been on for a really long time, and this is not going to lift anywhere near that type of level, because if it was going to be even if it was going to be even, the application wouldn't allow that to happen. And the main reason for that is that this hair down here needed to be applied first, maybe with foil, section by section, and then leave the root area to be natural for a while and let the ends process lighter, probably to around this point, then go back in and then do your root area. This is a very technical application, or it needs to be a technical application. Now, if we look at the also the amount of saturation on the ends, the amount of product that's been applied is very sparse. Now, that would be okay at the root area because the root area doesn't have any color on it, and of course the root area will lift much, much easier because there's nothing in the way, there's no barrier. But when it comes to those ends have got lots of color buildup. As you mentioned previously, it was black. This is really where this is just not going to ever catch up with that. And so she's automatically, she's going to have problems. I'll be intrigued to see exactly how that turns out in just a second. But the reality is that when the hair's uncolored, we should avoid it like the plague. It should be the very last thing we do because it lifts twice the rate or 3 times the rate of the hair that's got color on it already. So if you weren't aware of that, hopefully now you're a bit more enlightened and you can manage these things differently.
We're on the final stretch, everybody. It's honestly looking really good. And
well, not sure how she's come to that conclusion that it's looking really good, unless she's just looking at her roots. Because as we can see, again, the ends here haven't hardly lifted. The roots are level 9-ish. The ends are what are on the top here, I'm imagining, because the mum's back into the back of the hair. They've got to kind of a 7-ish kind of level. They're quite orangey. This is going to be a mismatch of colours, whatever happens now. I know she's going back in and reapplying those ends, and that's great. That's actually going to help enormously. But a lot of the problems that they're going to face have already been done.
First round of bleach, and I washed it out.
Okay, round 1 of bleaching, she said. As we can see, everything we expected it to be, very orangey, probably level 7. It did catch up at the front there on the ends here, but obviously that root area is so blonde. Now, at this point, you know, if you wanted to tackle it like this, for example, and you do exactly what she said, wash it out, you could then go back in, section the hair off, and lighten the warmer areas again, providing you think the hair is capable of accepting more lightener. It's a risky play, but it's doable, because obviously the less time we can keep the hair alkaline, the better, basically. So in this particular instance, I would be dubious, to say the least, to to overlap any of this root area, but I would probably feel confident, providing the condition felt okay, to go back in and pre-lighten these ends once again.
But it definitely needs a second bleaching, which I expected because my hair was so dark. But it honestly got a really good amount of my hair. And we have a toner that I'm gonna put on once it's all actually bleached. So I'm gonna dry this and then do a second bleaching.
Exactly what I expected. Level 7 orange on the ends, and level 9/10 can't really see that well the root area. This is everything that I expected it to be. She said like she's got a lot of box dye in her hair, etc. This is what it would look like. She's obviously rough dried hair, which is making it look extra frizzy. It seems to be in good enough condition, but who really knows? I mean, I can't be the judge of that over the internet like this. But in reality, yes, got to go back in, do a second round of bleaching. She's done exactly the right thing, though. She's taken the time to dry it. And in salon conditions, you too should probably take the time to dry it, because remember, water is a different pH to your peroxide and the bleach that you mix it with. And if you apply it to wet hair, it's not exactly designed, although it will work, it's not designed to go on to wet hair. It doesn't do its best lifting on wet hair. A great shout here. Now I'm very intrigued as to what the mum does with regarding to the roots here. Okay. So, as I'd mentioned previously, just a second ago, that there's no need to lighten those roots again. There is absolutely no need for all of this lightener on those roots. They're already super blonde. I mean, it doesn't make them a level 10, do what you like, but it's not going to make any difference. The ends are not going to catch up miraculously. So this is an issue, and so she's creating more damage at the root area. She's then processing the ends further. She's not giving anything a chance to catch up. Had she have just said, right, from this point, it's orange, we'll focus on that area. And then, like she said, she had a toner when she took off the first bleach. Hopefully the toner's a level 8 or something a bit darker, maybe. Fingers crossed, probably not. But anyway, fingers crossed, because you can even out the colour. She'd got it to a level 7. If she managed to get it to a 8/9, she could put one toner on all over, give herself a break for a few weeks, look after her hair, and then come back in and do a second application or a third application of lightener. Remove the toner, remove the extra lightness that you'd created through that ends, and then go back in and try and get up to nearer to blonde. Now she's going to cut a big chunk of her hair off. She mentioned potentially. I haven't seen that with the hair cut off, so that might help. Well, that will help a lot, because a lot of the color densities at the end. But in this particular instance, coloring those ends was the only thing that needed to happen here. Just the ends, not the roots, just the ends. There's a lot of you very experienced hairdressers out there will know that already. But if you're inexperienced at bleaching jobs, or you find bleaching jobs very, very tricky and hard to manage, well, hopefully you're going to take something away from this.
Was the biggest flop of all time. Okay, so this was the biggest flop of all time. The top is so good, the top is perfect, but the bottom is ruined from all the box dye I've done. I'm gonna see how this dries tomorrow. I honestly might dye it brown again. Oh god, okay, I did not rinse out all my purple shampoo. That's a problem for tomorrow. It's 1:40 in the morning. I'm gonna get 3 hours of sleep before my shift, so I'm gonna...
Okay. As you can see there from, what's happened, it's precisely what you'd expect to happen. You just put a toner on, the toner's too light, it's toned the blonde hair, to very clean, but it's not dark enough to affect the ends, because remember, you can only tone on level. Toners, or tints as they are really, but we call them toners, hair color will only affect the level of which you apply it to, that it's meant to go on. Let me explain that clearly. Let's say, like the roots of her hair are 10, in hairdresser terms, blonde. If you put a toner that's a level 10 on this color, it will tone it. If the level 10 is being used to tone a level 8, 6/7 down here, it will not tone it. It won't seem like it's done anything. It will have added tone into the hair, but it's not physically visible. Okay, now let's, for example, say they'd have got a level 8 or a level 7 toner and then they'd have put that on these roots. That's a problem too. We'll talk about that in a second, but that would have at least brought the roots down and that would have then affected the ends. However, because the roots and the ends have got such a large discrepancy, you'd have needed to use two toners. You'd have needed to use a toner on the root area, yes, that had more warmth in it, maybe a gold shade to match up to those ends, or a gold ash shade to match up to those ends, a 3-1 or something in those realms, and then just an ash shade through those ends, a 8.1 or something like that to cool it right down, and to sort of negate a lot of the warmth that's in those ends. So they would have to do some balancing. Again, technical for somebody doing their hair at home. She's been doing this all night. She's cut a load of it off, I can see that. I'm intrigued as to where she's going to take it now. She's just mentioned that she might box dye it brown, which would be a travesty because it wouldn't, all that bleaching then just goes out the window. It's a pointless exercise. She would be better off just trying to even it out.
Today, I just had to go to work with it, and now we're bleaching it one more time and doing another toner. So,
okay. If her hair can withstand bleaching it one more time, this could be a smart play. Again, I'm not entirely sure why there's bleach all the way up here. It just doesn't need it. Those roots are already super light. This is the area where it needs, as much bleach as possible. Here, not so much. We could see from the video before, those 3 or 4 inches that the hair had grown in the year or so since she'd had her hair dyed black, or all the last box dyes were applied, that was down to the top of her ear. That's the bit below was the only bit that needed lightening again. And this is the second time those roots have been lifted. It's just creating undue damage and potential breakage by doing that. So interesting, but always going to cause yourself problems. She's obviously going to tone it again in a minute. So we'll see how that plays out.
it's still not perfect. Like, it still has these areas where it's kind of orangey. So I don't know what I'm gonna do because I did all this work to bring it blonde and I don't want to dye it brown. So I think I'm just kind of gonna live with it and let it grow and keep touching up the roots and keep chopping it short because I do like this length on me. Here's some pictures too.
Well, as you can see, it's actually not a bad colour, and if it was me, I would probably make this bit warmer and slightly darker, and then it would be nice and even, and she could just, leave it, keep topping her roots up. Not all blondes have to be platinum or cool. Look at her skin tone. It's quite pinky. She's fairly pale. She doesn't need to be ice white. It's not necessarily going to be better on her skin, so I think for me it would be a case of this is actually a nice color. It does suit her skin. It actually suits her overall, and yes, she does look good with her hair short like that. So this is the area obviously that has been lifted and lifted and lifted. And one of the problems that she's got coming in the future is that she's obviously going to have to touch up her root area. Now, if she doesn't do that in fairly short succession with a regrowth that's no longer than or no wider than my finger, about 1 centimeter roughly, okay, is that it's going to be very, very difficult and challenging to go back and do a roots. When you've got a scalp bleach like this, you can't leave it too long in between. I've made videos on how you can leave it and combat that, but it's much more technical, it's much more long-winded. You can go and check those videos out on the channel. It's how to deal with a long bleach regrowth. You should be topping them up every 6 weeks. It's imperative that you do, and if you don't, you're going to cause yourself untold amounts of issues. So I think this isn't a disaster as such. This is what you would get if you don't tackle the job in the correct way. And the correct way would be to tackle the ends first, right in the beginning, allow that to process for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, go back in, touch up your root area, make sure you use tons and tons and tons of bleach. Take that off. You're probably still going to need to bleach it again. You'd have probably got to this point in 2 applications. If the hair could withstand a 3rd application, it may not go lighter than this in this area on the ends. And, the condition of the hair might break down to the point at which the hair falls off before you ever even got it lighter than that. So sometimes you have to accept that this is the best result. But then the obvious thing to do is to go in with a corrective toning process, tone down the roots, cool down the ends, and just accept that exactly what she said is that she's going to keep cutting it short and growing it down. If she wants to be that level 10 clean blonde that she's got at the roots all the way through, she's going to have to be patient, because the hair will only take so much stress and strain. She'd mentioned earlier in the video that she'd bleached hair previously and she'd snapped some of her hair off. It's very, very, very easy to snap someone's hair off if you're not careful with the processes and using all the due diligence and the correct products and in the correct way.